Hi, this is Elaine Benfield, and welcome to another episode of Herstories. Today, I have a special guest, Hannah Benfield. If anyone doesn't know, Hannah is my fabulous 18-year-old daughter. And today, we're going to just go through a bunch of different topics and have a conversation. As I start off, I always talk about in the beginning why this person inspires me. And I can say this indefinitely that Hannah's had a lot of struggles growing up, a lot of challenges, and no matter what has Hannah's been faced with, has overcome it with vigor and just tried to have a good attitude. And to me, that is one of the reasons why Hannah's inspiring. So let's start off with as a child, you really struggled. Struggled getting along, struggled with impulse control, and would love to just kind of kick off by talking about some of that.
So I just remember from a really young age, just, even in kindergarten years, first, second grade, I just remember not really getting the other kids, just not
All kids,
like,
like
yeah, all basically everyone.
Mhm.
And just being like, I don't really understand what they're doing. I always felt just like, just different. And it took me until pretty recently to kind of understand why.
Mhm.
And it's because I'm autistic. And when I was really young, I just didn't know how to talk to people.
Mhm.
And, being in a school environment for so long, not really being able to talk to people, just kind of being on my own, just
And more introspective.
very, very like, not self centered, but like just in my own mind. I'm in my own
Mhm.
head a lot. Just thinking of things, entertaining myself, stuff like that. Um, and for me, it was just like, so to be clear, I realized I was autistic about 2.5 months ago.
Mhm.
And it kind of just was this like, oh, well, now everything kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You know, from all the difficulty in school years to all the difficulties at home to just still not really being able to talk to people very well. Um, just in general, things like that.
So when you were a child, I've said this before, you have very high IQ.
Hmm.
So when teachers would say there was behavior problems, it was, you know, always what we heard from the teachers. Oh, it's because, Hannah's so smart and
Hmm.
Hannah's so advanced and Hannah acts more like an adult. And in fairness, we did have you tested a few times and everyone came back like the two tests that we had done came back as your spectrum like.
Hmm.
We're like, well, everyone has a variation. And that to me, it just was something we've kind of knew.
Yeah.
But you go back and look and go, you were in a few schools, you
Yeah.
really struggled. Talk about now, like, the impulse control to me was a really
Yeah.
big piece of your
So
childhood.
I always kind of bounce back on like, why did I have the impulse control? Why did I have all these problems, not being able to control my behavior? And I look back and I think it's pretty simple now. There's two parts to it, which is I would seek attention.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I got that attention, it would very often be too much attention.
Yeah.
I would get overwhelmed and I would not be able to control my mind, my
Mhm.
emotions, my actions. And looking back, the reason why I was doing attention seeking behavior is because pretty simply I had no friends. And
Mhm.
that kind of ties into the fact that I just couldn't talk to the other kids. I didn't know how to talk to them. And the only way I did know how to talk to them was to be attention seeking. And the impulse control, like now, I don't really think is like a thing that is
Mhm.
present. And I think even looking back, it wasn't really impulse control. It was, there's a lot of things happening around me.
Mhm.
Things are different. I'm talking to people, maybe I'm in a little bit of an argument and I don't know how to control my
Mhm.
emotions. And then I lash out.
Well, and what the teachers said to us very often, and I know other families and parents that are like, "Oh, my child has impulse control." There is a commonality of
Mhm.
very high IQ student. Like there's so many factors to
Yeah.
it, but we always were told, oh, when Hannah's intellect, when the emotional intellect will catch up with the IQ intellect, then everything will be fine. And we're
Yeah.
like, okay, I didn't really quite understand
I'm gonna
that.
be honest. I think
Yeah,
that's
we didn't know.
at a certain level. I think it's bullcrap.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
looking back, I was always very emotionally intelligent. I've always been very introspective, very critical of myself,
But
thinking.
but I did think it was a little.
No, hear me out.
Yeah.
And the problem is that because of autism, because of my autism, um, I couldn't communicate my emotions effectively
Mm-hmm.
to non-autistic people. It was hard to explain to people that, I hit someone because I was overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and, just my brain kind of just like stopped working
Mm-hmm.
and that was its natural response versus, oh, I just hit someone because I just did it,
Yeah.
like I wasn't thinking about it. And looking back, I kind of caused myself a lot of problems, kind of trying to not hide it,
Mm-hmm.
but just believing that if I said these other things, you know, it would be easier, which made it very hard in the long run.
Yeah. And then you got to the point where it was such a pinnacle point that you ended up going to wilderness
Hmm.
therapy. You ended up going away at the age of 12 for 3 months and to learn kind of, we thought, the social skills and how can you act with others. And then, how was that experience for you? And was
So
that a turning point or
for
was
me, and I know we've had this discussion many times, and we disagree on this. I don't think it was good. I think it was good for you. I think it was good for the people around me. It was very bad for me
mm-hmm.
because what the wilderness therapy did, because my autism wasn't apparent to the therapist, because it wasn't a factor
Mm-hmm.
in what they were doing, none of the coping strategies worked. None of the methods that they taught me worked. What did work was the conditioning. Basically seeing, okay, well, if I act this way, do X, Y, Z, then this good thing happens or nothing bad happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I should keep doing this. And this is kind of what's referred to as like a mask. Um, so the term masking in reference to autism is hiding autistic traits
Mm-hmm.
because showing them can be socially awkward,
Mm-hmm.
stressful, and in some situations dangerous.
So to me, you and I vary on the once again with I thought you came back as a different person and were more self-aware. At that time,
Hmm.
you were tested there and they said once again that you were spectrum like qualities through certain
Hmm.
things. You never as a child liked loud noises, you didn't like
Yeah.
large crowds, there's certain things. But then that was a turning point because you ended up coming back and then going to a
Hmm.
school that really specializes.
And like the problem with the school wasn't the school itself. It was that
Yeah. Your
we,
previous schools.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're the problem. No, like with this one specifically, I can talk about the other schools in
Mm-hmm.
different lights. Um, but it was that the therapist there, the teachers, I didn't know, you didn't know that I was still autistic. And that's really what I feel like a lot of this boils down to, which is that I was receiving, advice, care, you know, and I was navigating the world without knowing that I'm just different
Mm-hmm.
and that I think differently and that I act differently and I perceive things differently. And that's not great because it means that all these things that I'm being taught aren't very helpful for
But
me.
but in the end, the school.
The environment was good because all the students were neurodivergent, a lot of kids with ADHD, autism, etc.,
Mm,
um, which meant that, you can't be bullied if you're autistic, if everyone's autistic,
yeah,
like
or
this.
anyone, everyone has something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like people were still bullied. It
Yeah,
was middle school and high school. Like, come
yeah,
on.
yeah,
That's kids are mean. People are mean, but
yeah,
like, it's just, it was a good environment to kind of just like see other people who were like me, even though I didn't know that they were like me because of the habits that I built up to hide
yeah.
the things that were truly me.
But so you ended up, as you said, you've really come to the realization you have a great therapist who kind of
Hmm.
pulled this all together. We just kind of always, as I
Yeah.
said, the traits. But, there's been some things that are really interesting that I think you've learned, which I
Hmm.
think can help people, going through therapy. Um, I'd love you to talk about some of the things that, we're working together as, a mother and a child to come up with, how do I help
Yeah.
work with you? And I'd love you to kind of go through some things you've learned.
So I think a really good example of this is mornings. I struggle immensely during mornings. If I have to, wake up at 8:30 or 8, I have class at 9:30, so I have to shower, eat a little bit,
Hmm.
brush my teeth, do everything. There's a long list of items that I need to go through by, 8:45. I need to be in the car heading to college so I can park at this time, do XYZ. And I have this plan in my head. I wake up and the first thing I do is, what am I going to do this day?
Yeah.
How am I going to plan this day out? And I think of just all this really quickly, and it kind of just sets in my mind as like, okay, well, I've done this, time to do this now. I've done this, time to do the next thing. And in the morning, first of all, I'm still tired. I just take a while to wake up. But in the morning, I would walk downstairs, I finish showering, finish brushing my teeth, and let's say it's 8, like 23,
Mhm.
and I need to be in the car driving in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
If I go downstairs and you're like, hey, how are you doing?
So I'm
My
going to
mind,
caveat this.
let me continue.
Well,
My
let
mind,
me let me say so.
mhm,
To me, know that I wake up and I'm ready to go. My sister used to call me Snow White. I'm loud. I'm just ready in the
mhm,
morning.
yeah. And for me, it's like, I am still mentally going through, all right, I still need these 4 tasks done before I need to get in the car. Then I need to move my keys into the spot. I need to
Mhm.
put my wallet here. I have my water bottle. And make sure I have all these things. Then I, have to drive. And for me to have these mental processes interrupted when I'm still tired, still, my brain is still waking up, it's very stressful.
Mhm.
And it's also like, it's very, very mentally taxing to talk during that. So one thing that we've kind of, mutually agreed upon is that talking to me in the morning just isn't gonna work. I can't converse in the morning. My mind is too busy. My mind is too clouded. There's too many things going on. Like, you'll say hi, I'll wave, but I I can say something, but doing so is very exhausting to my mind.
Well, and I do want to bring up that, this was an impasse with both of us because I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I'm like, Hannah's being rude. She doesn't want to talk to me. And I'm like, to make my day better, I want to talk to my kids. It's what
Hmm.
I live for. And then it was like, oh,
Yeah.
so now when you just do this, I'm not upset
Hmm.
because I
You
know
understand.
I understand, and that, like, now I get that.
Hmm.
But it took us to go, well, wait a second.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this, when you do this, this is what way it makes me feel, and vice versa. And I
And
think,
it took me realizing that I was autistic to be able to communicate these things clearly and understand
Mhm.
why in the mornings if someone talks to me I get stressed, because like that doesn't happen to the average person. People just talk in the morning,
Yeah,
but to me that's like,
it's horrific. It's
it,
just, it doesn't work.
I wouldn't use that word. It's just very anxiety inducing and stressful.
But I see your face expression. So it's like, to me, it's like, I see that it's tough for you,
Yeah.
you know? Um, the other thing I think I'd love you to talk about,
Hmm.
schedules.
Yeah. So
Like you alluded to it a little bit, but I'd love you to
yeah,
get more into the
you
schedule
know,
piece.
like, and I've used this example
Mhm.
before, but like, let's say I'm getting home from school, and I'm getting home at 12:30 or like 12:45, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to make pasta,
Mhm.
which, a little bit of background information on that, is a food that I make at the same time, same ingredients, same way, for weeks and weeks on end. So for me to come home, at 12:45, it's like, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put water in the pot, start boiling it, and I'm going to put all my stuff away. When I'm back down, I'll salt the pot, put the pasta in, get all
Mhm.
the ingredients ready, set all the items in a specific place. And this happens when I'm leaving the school. I'm thinking about this basically 45 minutes away, this detailed, this, precise.
It's a process. It's like a process.
It's a process. It's my schedule, and this is just how I work. But for me to come home, for example, there were times when I would come home, and you had been like, "Oh, I made you a salad," and it's like my schedule's ruined.
Mhm.
And
And I just
I
looked at it as like, I'm making a
yeah,
salad because I made a salad. I'm trying to be
yeah,
nice. And it's like,
you're just being helpful, and it's
yeah,
like that's kind of what it boils down to with a lot of these kind of interactions, where it's like you've done nothing wrong. I've
yeah,
done nothing wrong, but it's just there are negative feelings regardless,
yeah.
and it's just kind of I need to work with that, and I need to work with you on that. So I communicated it. If you're going to make salad, I need to know before I leave for school,
Yeah.
so that my entire day plan can be adjusted accordingly.
And I want to know like about scheduling. And then I have another
Mm-hmm.
piece I want to talk about is like with scheduling for you, I also noticed like like when I know something's coming within a week, I like tell you and then I like keep, because to me, also part of it is in like there is no spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is really hard for you. Um, can you go off a schedule within like 48 hours? Like what's your
It
parameter to
depends.
make you not uncomfortable?
It depends because it's like, hey, we're going to eat dinner at this time. I'm going to make
Mhm.
this dish. It's like a 6 hour, 12-hour thing.
Mhm.
But if 1 hour before I'm making dinner and I finish drumming, I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to go downstairs and make the
Mhm.
dinner, which I have planned with the same thing I've already talked about.
Yeah.
If I go downstairs and you're making food, I'm like, oh fuck, no, my
Yeah.
schedule's gone.
Yeah.
And
I ruined your schedule.
yeah, and it's just kind of like, what was the original
Was
question?
it make it uncomfortable? Like just
Yeah,
planning ahead? Like it makes you uncomfortable.
yeah. Planning ahead is very, safe for me.
Mhm.
It just makes it very same.
Yeah, and I
And
know how
there's,
to work with
but
to work
like,
around
there are
it.
certain things where it's like, if like we're eating at home, I just need to know a few hours beforehand. If we're
Mhm.
eating out, I need to know like a day beforehand because it's like, okay, well, then we need to get in the car, then we need to drive there, then I
Mhm.
need to know what the menu is because I need to know ahead of time because I won't be able to make a decision in the
Yeah.
moment. And then it's like I'm also needing to mentally prepare myself where I'm going to be sitting in a restaurant filled with
Mhm.
many other people, hearing a lot of things, bright lights, stuff like that,
Noise and everything.
noise.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I have on a refrigerator, like what is our weekly
Mhm.
activities and what is the menu? And what I realized the schedule really helps me too. Obviously, you're a little bit more. The other thing I think I really want to highlight is I am a list person. I joke
Mhm.
all the time. I list of lists. You actually, that is something you have as well.
Mhm.
That you have lists and you have orders and you have.
So
I would love
my
to,
lists are different because your
yeah,
lists are things that you want to do.
or
You're
have to do, or
Yeah,
yeah.
like you're
Hmm.
keeping track of things that you're going to plan. My lists are usually in regards to my interests.
Yeah.
So a topic in regards to autism, it's called like special interests or
Hmm.
intense
Yeah.
interests. So, for example, these are usually a handful,
Mhm.
smallish number of interests that an autistic person gets very into, and this like goes past regular people interests.
Mhm.
People say that they like music, and it's like they enjoy it, they listen to it. They hear it and like this sounds good. When I say that I like music, I obsess over it. My day revolves around it. I spend hours just reading things about it. Looking into the backstory of some songs. Deconstructing the song.
And even as a child, I do want to bring up
Mhm.
Rubik's
Rubik's
cubes.
cubes, exactly.
Yeah,
I
talk a little
had
bit.
like 50 of them. I knew how to solve every single one of them. I would just think about it. I would always have one in my hand. It was a very deep and personal connection with that interest for me.
Mhm.
Um, and like currently what I'm obsessing over is the band Tool. I have like I did the math. Since like started obsessing over it. 1 in 8 seconds, like 1 in 8 seconds, just since that actively spent listening to it.
Mhm.
That does not include researching it. That does not include songs that I didn't finish.
Yeah.
Like if there was 1 second left and I went to a different song, it doesn't count that.
Yeah.
If I'm watching videos on YouTube, if I'm making lists about the music.
But it makes you, it's that like in-depth knowledge and like passion for something.
And it
makes you comfortable. Does it feel safe?
It's comfortable. It's also very passionate. And it's also, I think a friend of mine uses this phrase, supreme joy. When I interact with the music, when I listen to it, when I make rankings of it, I have a ranking of every single song. I know where every single song lies in my personal enjoyment of it. Like, doing those things makes me so incredibly happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, it was like a moment. It was like, wait, people don't like obsess over their favorite things and like get giddy just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn.
So are you happy? So I know we've talked about this, like, if I would do things differently, I probably would have gotten you tested better to make sure that we would have known, so you would have known. Do you regret not knowing this when you were a child?
Absolutely. 100%. If I knew when I was like even younger than teenage years, my life would have been much higher quality because I would have understood all the issues I've had. Why couldn't I talk to people? I was always just like, it's just like, I'm just not great at talking to people.
Yeah.
But if I knew that, oh, it's because I'm autistic, then it would be, okay, well, here's how I can talk to people.
Yeah.
Here's the scenarios where it works. Here's the scenarios where I'm comfortable in, instead of just being like, I'm just not going to do it. I couldn't order at a restaurant alone until I was 15 or 16 because of that. And that's unpleasant. But those things like that wouldn't have occurred.
So do you feel good about knowing, so now you can adapt
exactly
to it?
I'm still like, I'm 18. It's like, I wish I knew earlier, but there's a lot of people who find out in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and it's like, wow, my life could have been much higher quality.
And I know we have this discussion of like, to me, spectrum like, and being on this, like, I don't know, like, to me as a parent, I didn't realize the severity of what you needed to know, because it's not like we hit it. We talked about
the phrase earlier, like, everyone kind of has these qualities, and it's like, yes, like one example is stimming, which stimming is, repetitive movements. It could be like making a repetitive noise or doing repetitive things. Like my biggest ones are, I do drum things with my hands constantly.
Or tapping feet, tapping legs, like,
just like
certain patterns.
I do this with my wrists a lot. Everyone does that, You're not doing it right now.
I'm not doing it right now, but Hannah noticed before, my mom and I think my sister and I, we all do this.
Yeah.
There's something we do, and that's stemming. And it's I always picture my mom doing it.
But the difference is that, everyone does that. The people who are autistic do it to a much greater amount, to a higher severity, and it is more necessary for regulation because it is a self-soothing thing. When I do it, it makes me feel calmer. And it's like, everyone does have autistic traits. Yeah. But not everyone.
No. That I agree. I absolutely. I don't mean to just diminish it.
Of course.
So when you look at the future, do you, we've had these conversations. I work for a great software company called SAP. We have a whole division, and we hire, autistic people to, to me, there's such a special gift because you do think things differently. You process things differently. Do you, when you think of your future, tell me a little bit about how you're going to leverage, being on the spectrum to help and being autistic to, kind of your future path.
Well,
and you might not know. I mean, you're 18.
I think of it as, how can I use this? How can I plan my life out so that my interests, my autism is compatible with that? And I think I'm very passionate about music. I'm very, very passionate. I love drumming, and I was just like, something that would be compatible with is becoming a musician. And for me, it's just like utilizing, what I'm interested in knowing what scenarios would make me comfortable in the future.
And know that that was something, this is something we're working through as you're you're in college, you're transitioning out of going to like
Mhm.
the typical school, which took me a little while. And I had my stepdaughter Madeline on, what I thought as a mother, what your path should be.
Mhm.
It's as you get older, I'm like, no, it's not the right path. It always takes me a second to be
Yeah.
the mother going, wait. You
Yeah.
need a 4-year degree. You need to do this. And it's like, but it's not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
And that's where the protective, but I think you're going to take this to take it to a whole nother level
Mhm.
to leverage the passion you have. The passion you
Nice.
have is incredible. Um, so, I want, what do you, what would you want to say to kids
Mhm.
that find out that they're autistic? What would you
Um,
want to tell them?
I would say that, on many levels it is difficult. You know, there, I would say the biggest two things, for me at least personally, is, sensory issues,
Mhm.
you know, bright lights, a lot of noises make me feel very overwhelmed. Going outside in the summer is difficult because if I start sweating, it
Yeah.
it's it's not great. And it's also social issues, talking to people is very hard. But there's also a lot of benefits. I go back to like the special interest thing. I can spend an entire day obsessing over a single album, do that for weeks,
Mhm.
and be incredibly happy the entire time. That
Yeah.
is a gift.
And get to the level of depth you get
Yeah.
to that is just, you know how much I love Bono and you too. And but I'm scratching a surface compared to what
Yeah.
you do. And I
I
think
could
that that's
talk
such a
about
gift.
a single album from Tool for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Which I think is also, you and I have talked about, it also can be hard because I
Hmm.
have to learn to, I'd never heard of the band Tool.
Hmm.
And it's like, but it's something you love
Yeah.
that now I do catch myself listening to it and trying to understand the
Hmm.
lyrics. And because to me, that's the connection of,
Yeah.
I started doing Rubik's Cubes when you were doing Rubik's. Like to me, that's part of the parent's journey to find those things that,
Hmm.
you love. What would you tell parents
For
for their children?
parents, it's difficult because parenting an autistic child is hard. Parenting a child is hard. But
No.
quiet.
Quiet. Hush.
But I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, they are still a person, and like they aren't they aren't trying to make it more difficult for you. Like you having to, you know, like do all this work just so that I would eat food because eating food was so difficult for me because sensory issues, blah blah blah.
Tactile, sensory,
Yeah,
smell, like
everything,
everything.
and it's just like, but at the end of the day, it's not my fault. If I
Yeah.
had a choice, I would be not a picky eater at all.
Yeah.
I would
I would pick
just,
that too.
I would just pick a food and be like, yeah, I'll eat this.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Eat this.
I physically cannot do that. It is
Yeah.
not compatible with me and my brain.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, you brought up a few points. I think, you know, it's not your choice, but parents have to learn how to adapt to it.
Yeah.
There's moments you're super frustrated, the child's not trying to do it. And then knowing the patterns,
Hmm.
knowing your schedule, knowing lists, knowing your passions. I think because we have to me, a close relationship, you've been very open about, I have to have pasta now. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I always joke, like,
Yeah.
don't let me buy a whole Costco cart of whatever it is. And then you go, I don't want that. I don't want avocados anymore. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh no. But I think you've taught me how to,
Yeah.
here's your pattern. I try to add into it. You're
Mhm.
also vegetarian, so
Yeah.
it adds more
It's
complexity.
difficult.
It adds a lot of complexity. But I think having that open relationship to be like, and you tell me, and I think you've done a great job also of like, we text even in the house, you will tell me something about the day and was like, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
And I think I wake up in the morning, I never sleep at night. I wake up in the morning going, oh, that makes me feel better
Yeah.
that you really are,
There,
you realize it's hard on me
yeah.
because
There
whatever.
are times, and I struggled with this a lot when I was younger, where I think the biggest example I could think of is when we were moving out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
We moved about 5.5 years ago to another house.
and I remember being like told like you need to help us pack, like you're not helping us pack. But for me, it was like I struggle a lot with physically frustrating things, packing things into boxes, moving the boxes repeatedly for hours
Yeah.
is incredibly destructive to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish I could help. I want to
Yeah.
do my fair share of the
And we
work.
didn't know at the time.
We
We've
didn't
talked
know
about
at
it.
the time.
And I live like me because I'm like organizing, sure. And I was like
Like
so mad at you.
you were like, come help us
And
come
you
help
were
us
like,
organize. And I'm like,
no,
I
you physically
can't.
couldn't.
I can't.
Yeah.
And it was just like realizing now it's like all these things where it's just like I am
Yeah.
not compatible with a lot of things that you asked me to do.
But we also found a balance that it's like, okay, you can't do this, but you can do this. Like you the other day, you're like, oh, I can't help with the dogs, but I can help then. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. I need to be flexible, not because
Mhm.
I expect things when I expect them.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, well, why? Does it matter? It's an hour difference. So I think you and I figured out that dance of,
Yeah.
yes, I want your help, but does it matter if it's an hour later? No, it doesn't.
No.
It makes you okay and it makes me okay. What would you, anything else, any other final closing, thoughts?
I can't think of anything.
No, and this is really helpful. I would like to have you back another time to,
Mhm.
as you're going through this kind of learning, I think this is,
Yeah.
so many people have this. And I think,
It's I believe the current rate of diagnosis is like a little bit lower than 1 in 40, and
yes, it's incredible.
it's going to keep
Yeah.
becoming more common as detection tools increase, as understanding increases,
Yeah.
as people feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You know, I truly believe that this is a relatively common thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that society kind of suppressed it for a while.
Yeah.
Imagine being, my grandparents' age when being autistic was seen as this horrible thing
Mm-hmm.
that, was life ending. When really it's just, you're just different. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think, we talked about before, if anyone has any questions, as a
Mhm.
parent, helping children with it, we're not experts, but we've also learned how to have a good balance and we've talked to a lot of experts on the journey. And, obviously Hannah would be happy to talk to someone
Mhm.
as well. My closing question
Mhm.
from this aspect,
Yeah.
what empowers you?
I really bring it back to like the passion thing where it's like
Mhm.
the benefits, the ability to just be happy at the simplest things, that is a gift.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm going to utilize that,
Yeah.
And it's also like being around other autistic people, being able to have inherent connections about things just because I'm like, yeah, this happened and it sucks. Like if I told like in a non-autistic person that, they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. If I told another autistic person, like, they're like, yeah, I get it. Like
Yeah,
that makes
totally get
perfect
it.
sense to me. It's being able to find a like community as well.
Yeah. So I started off by saying how you inspire me. And words can't even say once again how proud I am of you and that you're taking this and not making it a crutch. You're not making
Mhm.
it, a hindrance. You're taking it to thrive.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone, listening from a parent or a child, as you said, this is a gift. It's you think differently.
Mhm.
You are, unique and different, but it's a great thing. And as a mother, like I couldn't be more proud. And you inspire me. So thank you again for listening, and thank you, Hannah, for your time. I look forward to having Hannah back another time to help talk about this really important topic. And thank you for joining her stories. Look forward to the next episode.